I remember having this discussion about mass deportations back in 2016, where I was making pretty much the exact same point that you just made about what it would take to deport more than 10 million people. And the reaction of, let's face it, his base was, yeah, we kind of like that. We kind of like the idea of the wall, even if we don't believe Mexico is going to pay for it. We like the idea of at least saying that we're going to throw out all the illegal immigrants. It gives us that dopamine hit. And so he has really cultivated this. We need to be strong. We need to be tough. We don't need to be bound by due process or the law. We need to be courageous, by which he means ignoring the constitutional provisions. And we need to actually fear the people who are living next door to us, because it's one thing to say, you're taking away the rights of law-abiding Americans. It's quite another thing to say, you elect me and I'm going to clear the vermin out of the house. I am going to exterminate the vermin. And this is the way he's rhetorically doing it. These are the people who are rotting the country from the inside. And you need someone strong and tough who's going to do something about it and solve these problems, which is why he admires these authoritarian dictators around the world. I mean, I'm bringing this up because we've been doing this for so long that it's easy to go, same old, same old. Yeah, tell me something new. Oh, the guy's such a joke. Well, there's a reason why he didn't give a speech praising democratic leaders in Sweden, why he doesn't talk about how wonderful the democracy of Great Britain is, which has, by the way, a very, very interesting cabinet shuffle today. He doesn't talk about the French system. He doesn't talk about Greece being the cradle of democracy. No, it's always North Korea, Hungary, and all of these other countries where, in fact, those civil liberties are eroded. So I guess this is one of those moments where it's like, guys, there's no secret or subtlety here about what he is saying. And you noted the number of Republicans who came out today, Will, and said, okay, I'm sorry. I want a Republican president, but this about vermin, no. Did you notice that? Do we have some sound? We have sound of that? No, none. There's actually none. Nobody, right?
Okay, so I can see some folks responding to this thinking, well, Trump, of course, doesn't like the Europeans. They're a bunch of liberals. But remember, this isn't just about left and right. This is about freedom, right? None of what Trump is praising here is freedom. He's trying to erode freedom. He wants a giant police force to go in and do this immigration crackdown. He wants, in the name of controlling crime, to suspend civil liberties. So Trump isn't about freedom. Trump is about order, right? Yes. And what I'm concerned about, Charlie, one of the things that we may find out in the process of this Republican presidential primary and possibly the 2024 election is how many of the Republicans, how many of the conservatives who claim to believe in freedom really do. The people who say, for example, that the government should.
We've already found that out. Will, I believe the answers are in.
But I mean, to be fair, these are people who say I don't want the government taking my guns. We have a Second Amendment. These people don't even like speed cameras, right? We don't want a police state. But what if they do? What if Trump's bet is that they do, and in fact they nominate this guy and they elect this guy, essentially saying we don't really care about all that stuff in the Constitution. We don't care about all the stuff Ronald Reagan said about freedom. All we want is order and punishing the vermin.
You mean they might actually be hypocrites about this? Really? Hypocrisy? I, for one, am shocked to find this out. Well, part of it is the freedom for us to be able to punish them. Is our freedom becomes, why do I want the gun? Well, I want to be free, but I also want to be able to shoot the vermin next door.
Right.
Or to protect myself from the vermin.
Right. Can I come back to the Pelosi thing for a minute? So he brings up the hammer attack, right?
Okay, can we play? Let's play the audio of this, because I don't want people to think that we're exaggerating. This is the former president of the United States joking about a hammer attack on an 80-plus-year-old man in his home. Easily could have been a murder. Let's just play that.
We had no terror during my administration.
No terror.
The only terror we had was Nancy Pelosi, who's a crazed lunatic. She's a lunatic. She is a crazed lunatic. What the hell was going on with her husband? Let's not ask. Let's not ask. I'll withdraw that statement. By the way, she's got a wall around her house. Obviously, in that case, it didn't work very well, did it? It didn't work.
Hilarious. So is he for walls or against walls? I am unclear there. Okay, sorry.
Right. So among the hypocrisy that we're talking about here is crime, right? Trump's message is, okay, the hell with civil liberties. We need to crack down. We need law and order because we need to control crime, but only some crime, right? And this comes back to your point about us and them. Crime against them is okay. Crime against the Pelosi's. And in fact, that line where Trump says, what was really going on there at the Pelosi's, that's, of course, not very subtle reference to the lie that Paul Pelosi and the attacker had some gay affair going on, right? This is just a complete fabrication of fantasy. But what he's essentially saying, what Trump is saying is that Paul Pelosi and Nancy Pelosi basically asked for it. The crime against them is okay. It's their fault, right? And that's a way of basically conveying that none of this is really about controlling crime, about protecting the general public. It's about the vermin. Pelosi and her husband are the vermin. So crime against them is okay, and we can all laugh about it.
Okay, so one last soundbite before we move on, because I want to play this really interesting exchange from our colleague Tim Miller and Carrie Lake, which if people haven't seen, and I'm guessing most people haven't, he was working with the folks from the circus this weekend. It's pretty amazing. Before we do that, though, Jonathan Karl is out with a new book about the Trump years, and he has a lot of stories that reflect how crazy they almost were. Oh, no, but crazy they were, but the crazy things that almost happened. For those of you that wonder, how separated from reality can Donald Trump actually get? And there's an interesting debate. Does he believe this? Does he not believe this? Does he know he lost? The story of Mo Brooks is awfully interesting, isn't it? Remember Mo Brooks? Mo Brooks being is it fair to say super ultra MAGA congressman, all in for Donald Trump. I mean, really kind of on the real kind of the fringes of this, and he's running for U.S. Senate in Alabama. They had a falling out, and he's told this story before, but it's worth remembering. And again, I want to just underline the fact that Mo Brooks is not a normie. Mo Brooks is not a rhino, a squish, a moderate by any means, right? Well, okay. How would you characterize him? I feel like I'm being unfair.
he was hardcore MAGA. There was no question about it.
So listen to Jonathan Karl talking about Mo Brooks. Let's play that.
In March of 2022, Trump called him with an extraordinary series of demands. Among them,
he asked me to publicly state that Donald Trump should be allowed to move back into the White House, reinstated as president.
Brooks says he refused, telling the former president his demand was blatantly unconstitutional, and that then Trump retaliated, pulling his endorsement. Brooks went on to lose the Republican primary.
Do you think he really believed that he could be reinstated?
I sure hope not, because if he truly believed that, then he was way outside the bounds of reality.
That's the very diplomatic way of putting it, I think, don't you?
Yeah, totally. So the word there was reinstatement, right? Trump was demanding, and let's go back to the timing here. What Karl's story here is that Trump made this demand of Brooks in March of 2022.
2022.
Okay, he's been out of office for more than a year. But let's go back to earlier in 2021. Trump was talking from the day he left office about being, quote, reinstated, right? And many, many people, including Jenna Ellis, another Trump lackey who has since, begun to do some reform and repentance. God knows what's sincere or not. But the point is, in the summer of 2021, Jenna Ellis, who was basically functioning as a lawyer for Trump and some others, said to Donald Trump, you can't be reinstated. You can't. There's no reinstatement in the Constitution. There's one way to get a president, Joe Biden, out of office. That is impeachment. That is the Constitution. Right. There's nothing else constitutional, right? So the reinstatement demand is essentially a demand for a coup, right?
Yeah.
So he's told this in 2021. In 2022, he's still at it, and he's threatening Mo Brooks that he's got to support, quote, reinstating Donald Trump. He's demanding a coup, and if you don't support it, he's going to oust you from the primary. Well, Brooks lost the primary. But clearly the point is, no matter what people say to Donald Trump, he continues to try to undermine the Constitution and try to overturn the government.
And that he will latch onto the most extreme, insane proposal. I mean, this has happened again and again. You'll hear that, well, Donald Trump is going to try to get Mike Pence to not count the votes on January 6th. Remember the first time you heard that? I remember the first time I heard that. I think it was when Paul Gosar in Arizona was talking about filing a suit. And it's like, Paul Gosar, yeah, right, that's not going to happen. And of course, we now know that Donald Trump took that very, very seriously and was prepared to take a lot of various steps. You hear, well, maybe Donald Trump thinks he can be restored to the presidency, which is just batshit crazy stuff. And the former president of the United States apparently was kind of fixated on this, and fixated to the point where he actually wanted to make this a litmus test for his loyalists. I suppose the good news in that story, or I don't know what it is that Mo Brooks, who is hardcore MAGA, even he wouldn't go along with that. Even he said, no, okay, I am with you. I'm prepared to do all this other, but I am not going to say that. So I suppose, right. I don't know, is there a pony underneath that? Well,
I'm going to try to come up with one, but before I get to the pony, let's go back and remember the various points at which Trump lackeys have said to the rest of us, he'll get over it. He'll stop. There's this point at which he'll stop. So the first one was, who was it? Mick Mulvaney. Who was it who said, what's the point in humoring him, or just
we don't know who it was. It may have been, that was that famous anonymous quote in the Washington Post right after the election.
Right.
What's the downside of humoring him, right?
So every other president concedes defeat, not Donald Trump. But what's the point of humoring him? We'll just go until what? The Electoral College? Mike Johnson says to Liz Cheney, you know what? I'm gonna support this crazy Texas lawsuit to try to overturn the election result.
Right.
But we're gonna do this because that's because Trump, this will get him over it. Trump will be done with it. Then we're going up to January 6th. We're just going to have this proceeding at January 6th, then he'll be over it, right? No, he tries to overturn the election. He's still all the way through the time that he's in office, January 20th, trying to overturn it. And then afterwards, he's out, and he's still trying to overturn the election. He's still trying to engineer, pull strings to get people like Mo Brooks to help him overturn the election. There is no point at which Donald Trump will stop.
Well, and this weekend, he's quoting Hungary's Viktor Orban saying he should be reinstated, which is like, oh, right. Wow. I mean, this is like cartoon stuff. Okay, but this is really, really a great point, because this rationalization, we will just go this far and we won't go any further, and then they keep doing it or whatever. Watch, that's going to happen over and over and over again in 2024 as Republicans go, okay, so if he gets, if he just gets past the indictments, or if he just gets the nomination, or okay, if he becomes president again, then we'll put those guardrails back up, or maybe he will grow into office this time. Every illusion they've ever had about him has been destroyed, and yet they cling to the illusions. Isn't that amazing?
Right.
This requires, I believe, a psychologist, not two political guys like you and me, to figure out. It's like you have these illusions, you cling to these illusions, you tell yourself a certain story that you go so far and no further, and every single time they'll go beyond that. Speaking of, I'm sorry.
No, absolutely. And just to be clear, the next stage of this is anytime that you or I think, well, it can't get worse, we need to remember that. We need to remember this point. Right. Because my version of it can't get worse has been, well, he's already been president for one term. If he got in, he'd only have one more term, and then he'd have to leave.
Right.
Why? That's just what's in the Constitution, and I think that's just another reassurance that either people like me tell ourselves, or that we've been told, that we shouldn't count on. We shouldn't count on anything with this guy.
I think that's true. I actually said something on another podcast, and I'm hesitating to say it again. If he loses this time, that he'll never graciously concede losing. He will never acknowledge his loss, and he'll run in 2028.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But no, seriously. I mean, he'll be old, but this isn't going to stop him. So it's like this never comes to an end. And so, look, see now, Will, I'm just going to push back a little bit here. When I inserted the word, he's going to create concentration camps, you said, well, no, not concentration camps. Give it 5 minutes. He's going to say, okay, they're accusing me of wanting to have concentration camps for illegal immigrants for the vermin. Damn right, they're concentration camps for the vermin. And it will be, the window will keep moving. And then you'll start to see normies who will go, well, no, the camps seem going too far. But, well, Lindsey Graham will explain what he really means by camps are just temporary settlements. And then it'll keep moving and moving and moving until it will be a litmus test. And if any Republican says, I am against concentration camps for illegal immigrants, they'll get primaried. I'm sorry. I'm so cynical. Speaking of somebody who's gone all the way, who has never hit a speed bump ever, Carrie Lake, who is apparently is she still claiming she's the governor of Arizona? I'm not sure, because that would be awkward for her. But she's running for U.S. Senate. She's going to be the Republican candidate for U.S. Senate in Arizona. It is not an insane idea that she would be Donald Trump's running mate, except that she's running for U.S. Senate. Our colleague Tim Miller caught up with her. And Tim is doing this thing with the circus, Showtime Circus. And he actually sat down with Steve Bannon and Carrie Lake, and they had very, very interesting exchanges. And I think there's some chemistry between Tim and Carrie. I'm just saying. Well, there's some touching that goes on. Did you catch that part?
Yes.
In all of this, where Tim's going, why are you touching me? And she goes, well, I'm a mom. I said, well, I don't know. This little bit. It's one thing to have an interview. See, I guess this is something we learned about Tim, is that when he's interviewing somebody, he doesn't want them to be touching him. Which, okay, I agree with him on that. This is one of the great things about doing this on Zoom. Is there's no touching, Will. There's just no. I don't know about Thursday night. I don't know about Thursday night when we're in DC, but I just don't think there's going to be a lot of touch. Anyway, I want to play this, and I'd like to credit. I think it's Ron Filipowski posted this on what used to be known as Twitter. But here's a short 2 minutes. Tim Miller actually having a conversation with Carrie Lake. Let's listen.
Whatever you guys say on the circus, I want to be able to have conservative students not being shamed on our universities.
This is like a golden age for conservative student speech. It's like, it's the best time ever. If you're a conservative student, you want to talk, you have huge platforms. I went to watch you speak at Turning Point USA. All these kids have huge audiences that come to see them, and that's great, that's fine. They're all speaking. Their speech isn't as a threat. There weren't any cops coming to shut down the Turning Point USA thing. But
True.
Here's the thing. You say you care about the fentanyl crisis and our kids.
I care deeply.
Okay, right. So if you care so deeply about this, couldn't you actually do something about it if you stopped the bullshit about the last election? If you had just acknowledged that Trump had lost and acknowledged that you had lost, you'd probably be in good shape to do something. You probably would have won your governor's race had you just talked about things people cared about instead of the election fraud. So sometimes don't you ever think to yourself, I wish I could just stop talking about this fake thing that Donald Trump made me make up so that I could actually talk about the stuff that's important? Because we agree about fentanyl. I agree. I wish we could deal with that.
I talked about that all the time at the campaign trail. I'm sorry you weren't with me.
You.
I'm sorry you weren't with me every step of the way. The people of Arizona understand me, and they know me, and they care about me, and I care about them. And I care about them. Getting them better, freeing the people who are held political prisoners. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. I think you are still a little extreme. That's okay, though. It's good to see you again.
It's wonderful
we can keep
to
doing
see.
This.
That's right. I'd love to.
This. We have some areas of agreement.
Love to.
We agree on the fentanyl thing.
And
then you get into the other stuff.
Oh,
but the other
sorry,
stuff is what
I'm
you
not
have to do. The other
I'm
stuff
sorry, I'm not making you happy.
The other stuff is what I don't know why you're touching me. The other stuff is what you have to do to win. Is the thing.
Sorry, I'm a mom. I'm sorry, I'm a mom.
That's okay. I like to touch too, but in an interview setting, it's a little uncomfortable.
I'm sorry that we don't agree on everything, but what I am not sorry about is that I think that I do believe that we can agree that we both love America.
We do. Well, I know that I love America. I do think that you were okay with Donald Trump trying to end the American experiment last time, so that makes me wonder how sincere your love is. But I do appreciate it.
Thank you for your time.
Good. Thank you for your time.
Ooh, and thank you for your time. Okay. Masterclass, gotta say, despite the touching, it was very interesting. What did you think, Will?
God bless Tim. I so admire Tim's ability to think on his feet and to How about it's not a confrontational interview. He's talking to a crazy person. I think is a crazy person.
Right.
He manages
without saying you're an effing crazy person. Why am I talking to this crazy person? Give up the crazy.
Right. But okay, can we pause on that for a second, Charlie?
Okay. Yes.
Give up the phrase "give up the crazy" is really good. That really crystallizes this thing. Is Carrie Lake, and are people like Carrie Lake in the Republican Party nuts? Are they nuts, or are they just pathologically dishonest? Like, does Carrie Lake actually believe that she won the governor's race and that Donald Trump won the presidential race? In which case, how the hell? Why is Tim trying to reason with her? Because you can't reason with. Or is Tim basically betting that she knows? Because it sounds like he's betting that she knows it's all bullshit.
Yeah, I'm going to go in her case with the pathological, just the pathological liar, understanding that the crazy is a rational choice in this Republican field. Does that make sense?
Okay. Sounding crazy, not being crazy.
Right. Sounding, because playing to the crazy, never admitting you lost, never saying it. It's a tactic. It's a choice. And let's face it, you could say that it's kind of worked for Donald Trump to a certain extent, right?
Right.
And you're looking around,
Now I got to bring up I got to bring up my pony. Okay, this is from
40 minutes in.
Right.
We had to wait 40 minutes for the pony. Okay.
And folks, this pony sucks. But here's what the pony is. The pony is.
What's the pony?
If the pony is that I hope, Charlie, that you're right. I hope that all of these Republicans, most of them, know that it's bullshit. Because if they don't know it's bullshit, we're in a hell of a lot more trouble, right? If they're really deluded. I mean, I think that Donald Trump is actually deluded about having won the 2020 election.
Yeah.
And that's part of why I'm even more scared of Trump. But if they know it's bullshit, if Carrie Lake knows it's bullshit, then imagine Carrie Lake getting elected, which could happen, right? You would certainly prefer to have a shameless liar elected who can be reasoned with, like Tim Miller's trying to do in that interview on other issues, on fentanyl or other things, than to have someone who's genuinely nuts, wouldn't you?
Ooh. Let me get back to you on this.
Okay.
Really. I think we need to think this through. I mean, I have some quick answers to that, but I actually think that's a really interesting... And here we are in late 2023 debating, what would you rather have? A deeply committed, pathological lying fascist, or someone who's actually insane? Those are our choices. Death by arsenic or death by wood chipper. I don't know.